Okay, straight into the engine reassembly. We picked up our parts from Silverstone Cerakote, who did a fantastic job of painting them black, gold and silver. Okay, first things first, we need to fit the crankshaft position sensor and tooth trigger wheel. This tells the ECU the position of the crankshaft and its rotational speed. Okay, now I need to set the air gap between the crank position sensor and the trigger wheel. Now that the crank position sensor is fitted and gapped correctly to the trigger wheel, we can fit the front pulley. On goes the fan shroud, in go the spark plugs, and then we can fit the rocker covers. As mentioned in a previous video, we wanted to have the throttle bodies modified to have an O-ring just like the bottom side. This will mean that no boost can escape when we're running high boost from the turbo, and these top hats will fit snugly on top of the throttle bodies just here. Here you can see some footage of the mill machining out the groove for the O-ring on the throttle bodies. Okay, time to fit the inlet manifolds and the throttle bodies on top. These have a spacer between the inlet manifold and the cylinder head to stop heat soak once the engine's been running for a long time. Okay, onto the alternator and fan. How good does the fan look Cerakoted gold? Really pleased with that. The fan slips over a woodruff key, and then we just need to nip up the nut in the middle. Okay, so now I'm just popping in the coil on plugs. Initially, I didn't realise this was going to cause an issue with the throttle linkage. As you can see here, the coils are right in the way of those linkage arms. Unfortunately, this wasn't picked up earlier on the dry build of the engine whilst at the engine builders, but hopefully with a little bit of modification, we can get it to work properly. Okay, next up we need to reassemble the turbo housing. We removed the exhaust housing and sent it off to be Cerakoted in gold, not to just make it look good but also to stop it rusting in the future. Okay, so I flipped the engine over so I could fit the turbo oil drain here. We welded a fitting onto the crankcase a little while ago just so we could have a drain into the sump. We've had these really nifty exhaust flanges made. They've got little stub pipes both sides which allow us to drop the exhaust without taking them off the cylinder head. Whilst we were here, we just made sure that all the bolts were tight and nothing was left loose. Okay, that's the engine pretty much assembled now and ready to be fitted to the car. I'm really pleased with how it's come out. I think the black and gold theme looked really well and should look fantastic in the engine bay of the Ghia. Okay, with the engine off the stand, I can fit the clutch. This is a standard Porsche 915 clutch to suit the gearbox, and it's mated to a conversion flywheel so we can run it on the VW Type 4 engine. Before I fit the engine, I just wanted to fit the radiator at the front of the car and the cooling pipes for the radiator. This will keep the water cool for the charge cooler, which will keep our intake temperatures cool. Here I'm drilling holes and fitting riv nuts to the chassis so we can screw up some aluminium brackets to hold up the cooling pipes. Here I'm fitting the two small oil coolers. We decided to run two because there wasn't enough space to run one big cooler. I then have to finish off some fuel lines before I fit the engine. Okay, the moment I've been waiting for ages. I've been really excited about this. It was a very tight squeeze to get the engine into the bay, and Chris helped me just jiggle it into position at the end. But yeah, really pleased with how this slotted in. Okay, so we've got the engine bolted in with the 4 bolts, and before I went any further, I just wanted to make sure that the throwout bearing was in the right position on the forks, because you can't really see it when it's in a Karmann Ghia or a Beetle. So we've bled the clutch and we've got this operating nicely now, and I'm pleased to say it's engaged, so we can now continue putting the engine in. As you can see through this tiny access hole at the top of the gearbox, the fork is positioned nicely on the throwout bearing. Okay, lots left to do now. We've got all the wiring to do. We've got oil lines to plumb in, fuel lines to plumb in, as well as breather hoses and a few other bits and pieces. So yeah, it's not a 5-minute job. Loving this turbo blanket from Funk Motorsport. That should stop the heat from escaping too much. So while I was cracking on with the engine, James Woolley from Woolley Engineering was cracking on with the brakes on the gear. Really pleased that he came to help me out because I'm really up against it. We need to get this car back to the trimmers this week. Whilst me and James were cracking on with other bits and pieces, Chris flatted down the bonnet because we hadn't polished that, just perfecting it and getting that paint finish like glass. Remember the issue that we had with the headlights in the previous video? Well, Dapper lights were fantastic and sent us out some upgraded looms for the headlights, and now they work. The old ones can go in the bin. Well, a good way to end the video. The car's almost back together now, and we've dropped it off to Darkside at D Signs. They're going to work their magic and do some sign writing for us. Then it'll be back to us to finish a few bits off, and then back to Dave the trimmer. Once again, thanks for watching the video, and please don't forget to like and subscribe, and we'll see you in the next one. See ya!